Can you imagine a world where a simple fence hinge could tear your life apart? I never thought I'd have to say this, but three intruders stormed onto my property and assaulted my wife, Leah, over something as trivial as that. They claimed it violated the HOA's precious perimeter standards, but I called it what it was. None of their damn business. What's worse, the only thing that got reinforced that day was the line they never should have dared to cross. Oh, the irony. Let me take you back to the beginning, to that gut-wrenching morning when everything changed. Have you ever seen something so wrong, so violent, so close to home that your body just freezes, like your soul slips out for a smoke and forgets to return? That's exactly what hit me when two HOA enforcers strutted up to our ranch gate, acting like they owned the place. One of them, can you believe this, punched Leah right in the face. I was just 20 feet away, clutching a lukewarm coffee, watching in horror as it all unfolded. It started with Leah's voice sharp and controlled like a fuse sizzling before it explodes. "You're not allowed on our land without a warrant," she declared, standing her ground. I glanced up from the porch, distracted by a busted fence rail, not yet grasping the storm about to break. The sun was barely up, painting the sky in soft hues when I saw them. Two men decked out in mirrored sunglasses and tactical polos, so tight they looked ready to burst. Smugness clung to them like a badge, and their testosterone practically dripped from their ears. One clutched a clipboard like it was a sacred scroll. The other, he radiated tension, shoulders, hunched arms, twitching as if his muscles were screaming for action. Can you picture that arrogance? "We're authorized to enforce code compliance," the short one barked, tapping a cheap badge on his chest like it was forged from gold. "Not some carnival prize for a hinge." Leah shot back, her voice cutting through the morning air. "You're threatening us over a fence hinge." Her boots were planted firm, hands on hips. Hair pulled back so tight not a single strand betrayed her fear. She was a warrior in that moment, wasn't she? Then the tall one stepped forward, his boot grinding against the gravel, hands low, but ready like a predator sizing up its prey. "Last warning, ma'am," he growled. Leah didn't flinch, didn't waver. Not resisting, she said, calm as ever, just disagreeing. And then, bam, he swung, no warning. No hesitation, just a brutal fist cracking across her cheek. The sound echoed over the wind, sharp and sickening. Leah's body twisted midair, hitting the gravel, like her bones had been yanked out from under her. By the time I dropped my mug and sprinted toward her, it was over. Blood smeared her lip, one eye blinking wildly, unfocused. Gravel clung to her skin, her palms scraped raw from trying to brace her fall. Can you even imagine the rage boiling inside me? She wasn't crying, and that's what broke me most. That strength, that silence, it was worse than any sob. "She got physical," the tall one said, his voice flat. "Emotionless," I responded with appropriate force. "Appropriate?" I echoed, my voice barely a whisper coming from some deep primal place. My fist clenched, my knees bent, ready to lunge. But I didn't move. I couldn't. Something in my chest locked up, my pulse roaring in my ears like a freight train. My body screamed to act, to protect her, but my mind, it dragged me somewhere else entirely. I was 8 years old again, standing on cold kitchen linoleum, the sharp scent of burnt garlic stinging my nose. A pan bubbled too long on the stove. My mother's back turned as she tried to fix it before he noticed. But he always noticed, didn't he? The tension hit first, his voice dropping to that quiet, dangerous tone. The room felt heavy, like the air itself turned against her. A spoon clattered to the floor. She reached for it too slowly. He didn't strike right away, but that look he gave her, it made me flinch even as a kid. I stepped forward once, my tiny voice trembling. "Stop!" He turned, and the silence that followed was louder than any shout. He stared at me like I'd shattered something sacred and said, calm as a prayer, "See what you made him do." How does a child recover from that? I didn't speak again. Didn't move the next time the room went still. I didn't know what to do with my hands, even when they balled into fists. And now, decades later, stronger, trained as a Navy SEAL, armed and ready, I was frozen again. Leah sat up slowly, her voice cracking in a way that made my teeth ache. "You saw that?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. I nodded, words stuck in my throat. "So why the hell didn't you stop it?" she demanded, her words slicing deeper than any punch. I had no answer, because the truth, it was uglier than silence. Then from across the road a voice broke through the haze. Now hold on, I said, y'all needed to punch up your bylaws, not punch people. It was Walter, my neighbor, my chaos gremlin, my accidental conscience, a doomsday prepper, beekeeper, amateur drone pilot, and proud owner of a bunker he calls the hobby shack. Can you picture this guy? There he stood on his porch, shirtless, binoculars in one hand, a cereal bowl tucked under his arm like a newborn marsupial. Leah, you good, he called. She gave the tiniest nod, barely perceptible. That's what I figured. You've always had a mean right hook, even when it's just words. The two enforcers didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't even make eye contact. They just turned and sauntered back to their side-by-side like they'd dropped off a package. No remorse, no shame, nothing. Then came the SUV kicking up a dust cloud, a custom plate and an HOA sticker on the windshield screaming trouble. Out stepped Karen, the embodiment of Botox and litigation, blonde immaculate, utterly unbothered. She scanned the scene Leah, on the gravel me still as a statue, and gave us a look like we were expired yogurt in her fridge. Can you believe the nerve? I assume you'll want to file a complaint, she said, tapping her phone without a glance. The board's email is on the newsletter. Check your spam folder. Then as if it were our fault. Had you addressed the prior fence violation, this could have been avoided. Walt muttered under his breath. She makes Emperor Palpatine look like a guidance counselor. Then louder. Don't worry, I'll be listening to the police scanner in case she calls in a drone strike. Karen didn't even blink. She drove off like she had brunch reservations with someone else's civil liberties. Leah stood slowly, one arm guarding her ribs, her face a mask of pain and resolve. I stepped toward her, desperate to help, to say something, anything. She flinched, not dramatically, but just enough to cut me to the bone. She walked back to the house, arms wrapped around herself, holding in what little strength she had left. And me, I just stood there clutching an empty mug, drowning in shame that felt like it was carving itself into my very bones. That night, sleep was a stranger. I sat on the porch, bourbon by my boot, a knife in my lap, staring at the gravel where Leah had fallen. It was disturbed like a scar on the land mocking me. Why hadn't I acted? Why had I frozen again? Walt showed up around midnight, 2 beers in hand, a ham radio tucked under his arm like a talisman. I tapped into their HOA comms. He said, his voice low. They're calling you non-compliant. Want to hear the codes? I didn't answer, couldn't find the words. He sat beside me and we drank in silence. After a while, he said, sometimes it's not the punch that breaks you, it's the one you didn't block. Those words hit like a sledgehammer, didn't they? He left, and I sat there until dawn, fingers white-knuckled around the knife. Not because I planned to use it, but because it was the only thing I could still control. The gravel stayed scarred, and in my head, one question screamed louder than the birds waking up. What happens when a protector fails to protect? They walked away like it was nothing, and I let them. But that mistake, they'd only get to make it once. What happens when a protector hesitates, when the moment to act slips through your fingers like sand? They walked away like it was nothing, and I let them. Can you believe that those HOA goons assaulted my wife Leah on our own land? And I stood there frozen, useless. But that mistake, oh, they'd only get to make it once. You'd think after a man punched my wife, someone would face justice, arrested, fired, plastered across a viral meme. Something. But no, nothing happened. No knock at the door, no apology, not even a measly phone call. Just silence, as if the world decided it never occurred. How does that even make sense? 2 days later, a notice arrived, not through the post office. Oh no, this was personal. Hand-delivered by some nervous teen in a neon vest with HOA courier scrawled in Sharpie like a badge he'd made in art class. The kid wouldn't meet my eyes, just shoved the envelope at me like it might explode and mumbled, "Have a better day." A better day. After what they did inside was a cold-type violation notice. Section 18, unregistered livestock containment alteration. A $275 fine if our perimeter gate. Yep, that same damn hinge wasn't fixed to HOA standards within 72 hours. The same fence, the same hinge, the same rage boiling in my chest. Leah read it without a word, placing it on the counter with the precision of a surgeon, then turned and glided into the kitchen like a ghost. She opened the fridge, grabbed an ice pack, and pressed it to her jaw, still bruised. still healing from that brutal punch. I followed each step, feeling like I was trespassing in my own home, my heart pounding with guilt. Leah, I'm don't. One word soft but sharp like a blade slicing through the air. Final, she opened the silverware drawer, moved a spoon closed. It opened it again, swapped 2 forks, closed it. Not angry, not even sad, just drifting detached like she'd hit pause on her own humanity. Can you imagine how that felt watching her slip away right in front of me? She moved to the spice rack next, organizing jars with alphabetical precision. No skips, no chaos. The clinking of glass was deafening, too loud and too hollow all at once. You hungry? I asked, desperate to break the silence I ate earlier. I didn't see you eat. I pressed, grasping for connection. She stopped, turned and looked right through me, her eyes like a mirror reflecting my failure. You didn't see a lot of things. Ouch. Those words hit harder than any fist I'd ever taken. Didn't they? That night she moved into the guest room. No explanation, no need for one. The door stayed open. Not an invitation, but a warning shot across my heart. How had I let it come to this? Meanwhile, Karen, the HOA's queen of control, was thriving. She posted a smug update to the Facebook group titled, Operation Neighborhood Order Quarter 2 Security Realignment. Can you believe the audacity? Effective immediately, all properties had to submit a perimeter harmony review, unauthorized gate designs, fencing tweaks, lighting fixtures, even reflective livestock tags. Cited daily compliance patrols were now authorized like we were living in some dystopian nightmare. This wasn't about rules anymore. It was about power, plain and simple. They weren't even hiding it. The next morning I spotted 2 new enforcers prowling the far end of our property, from the easement, tactical vests, clipboards matching sunglasses like they'd stepped out of a low-budget action flick. They didn't cross our line, just hovered, watched, measured, scribbled notes. One looked up and flashed a grin like we were buddies at a cookout. Just checking setback, buffer, compliance, he said. You're real close to the limit. So are you, I shot back, my voice low. Dangerous. He chuckled, wrote something down, unfazed. Walt. My neighbor called them the HOA Gestapo goons. They cited me for aesthetic obstruction via bunker porthole symmetry. He said, waving the ticket like a trophy. I told them the only thing obstructing aesthetics around here is Karen's soul. Isn't that the truth? Walt dropped into a lawn chair beside me, still ranting. Reflective glass may cause community glare disruption, he read, mocking their jargon. Guess that means I'm shining too bright. I managed a weak smile, barely there. Later that night, I retreated to the barn with a flashlight and a stack of every HOA notice we'd ever received. I pored over them, searching for something, a pattern, a loophole, a crack in their armor. But every paragraph felt like a trap wrapped in red tape. No matter how hard I studied, Leah's silence screamed louder than any fine. She passed the barn window once, arms crossed tight, not slowing, not looking in, just walking, holding herself together like she was all she had left. My heart sank. How could I fix this? Inside, I found her on the couch, braiding her hair with the focus of someone defusing a bomb. I need to fix this, I said, my voice raw with desperation. She didn't look up, didn't stop braiding. No, she said finally, each word deliberate. You need to decide who you are, because right now I don't think you know. Then she grabbed the remote and turned the TV volume up 1 notch, not 2, just enough to shut me out. Conversation over. I stood there staring at the back of her head, wondering how much of her I'd already lost. Was it too late? The next morning, Walt roared up in his camo golf cart, looking like he was ready for the apocalypse, but forgot it was Tuesday. A drone buzzed behind him, zipping through the air like an angry hummingbird on Red Bull. He held a jug of cloudy liquid under his arm. I call it kombusta, he said, grinning. Half kombucha, half fuel. Cleans the engine. Cured the colon. You're joking, I said, skeptical. Best part, he winked. Churi. HOA doesn't regulate internal combustion or intestinal. Yet. I didn't laugh, and he noticed his grin fading. They cited me again, he said, for weaponized composting. I told them it was just enthusiastic gardening. I just sat on the porch staring at the horizon. Finally, I asked, you ever freeze? Walt's eyes softened, serious now. That deer in the headlights look when someone gets hurt and you just stand there. Not because you don't care, but because you just can't. He paused, gazing across the pasture, then pointed to a dent in his truck's fender. My ex put that there. Hammer, 2011. Missed my skull by 6 inches. I ducked, didn't freeze, but I still remember that half second where I wasn't sure what I'd do. He looked at me, his voice steady. That second, it never leaves, but you don't have to live in it either. Those words stuck, didn't they? Like a lifeline thrown into the chaos. That night I watched Leah from the porch, her silhouette moving through the house. The gravel still bore the scars of her fall, a reminder of my failure. But Walt's words echoed. I didn't have to live in that frozen moment. I'd failed her once, but I wouldn't again. The HOA thought they could bully us, control us, break us. They thought they could walk away unscathed, but they'd underestimated me, hadn't they? This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I'd find a way to fight back to protect what mattered most. For Leah, for us, I'd become the protector I was meant to be.